Welcome back. In celebration of the 2016 Nigerian Democracy Day, NOIPolls, a country-specific polling service, has released a compilation of its monthly presidential governance approval rating poll. Now, the poll looks at how Nigerians assess and rate the president's performance over a one-year period. Joining me now to put flesh on the numbers is the Chief Executive Officer of NOIPolls Limited, Dr. Bell Ihua. Dr. Ihua, good morning to you and great to have you on the program.
Good morning, my pleasure. Thanks for having me.
Now, what did your polls reveal about Nigeria's assessment and review of President Buhari's first anniversary in office?
Okay, thank you very much for this opportunity. I have to say, as a way of starting this off, that since the president was sworn in May 2015, NOIPolls began conducting a monthly series of approval ratings. And the first approval rating was conducted in the month of June 2015, and we've been conducting that to this very month of May 2016. So we have a one-year approval rating, and what we decided to do was to come up with averages and bring out an average of how Nigerians are assessing the first one-year performance of President Muhammadu Buhari. Now, in terms of the numbers, on average, President Buhari scored an average of 64%. But you will agree with me that he came in with so much expectations, and Nigerians were really hopeful. Because of that, the early months of June, July, August, September were pretty high scores. In fact, he got his highest score of 80% in the month of October 2015. However, from January, we've seen a steady decline in the approval rating. January, it slid down to 57 in February. In March, it slid down to about 48. In April, 42. And in May, it came back up to 44. So on average, across board, over the 12 months, we've seen the approval rating at about 64%. But what's interesting to note is that for those who support the president or who approve of the president's performance in the last 1 year, they cited improved security, the military gaining grounds over the Boko Haram insurgents, 17% cited his fight against corruption and his intention to change these countries. On the other hand, however, we have 30% who cite the worsening situation of the economy as the reason why they do not approve his performance. 29% who cite his failure to meet change. People were really hopeful, he came in with so much hope, but 29% think that they haven't seen the change they anticipated. 21% cite the increase in the price of goods and services, and 6% cite delays in payment of salary across the various states and worsening situation of power supply. So these are the current, ratings of the president. But I will say that the devil is in the detail. We try to also get specific ratings on specific indicators, and I can tell you categorically that the highest indicator where the president scored the highest was that of corruption. His fight against corruption, slightly above average, 55%. However, on national security, he scored 47%, on power 43%. Very, very, very poor ratings on the economy and job creation. On the economy, he scored 21%. On job creation, he scored 14%. And these are average scores. So this is how Nigerians are rating the president so far.
Okay, so we'll get back to talking about those some of those focus-specific indicators in just a bit, because you've talked about corruption, you've talked about job creation, but we'll talk about the ease of doing business. Instead, take us through the methodology and the social demographics that were used to conduct this particular poll.
Okay, interesting methodology. It's a telephonic polls which will be conducted monthly. These are proportionate sample randomized across the country, and over this period we've spoken with over 12,000 Nigerians to get their views on what they think about the president. And we try to create an even balance, so we have a situation where about 49% of those we polled are females and about 51% are male. Also, we have over 50% are the young population of between 18 to 35, because you agree with me that we have a bulging youth population, and about 60% of our entire population is the youth population, and we have about 35% adult population who age between 36 years and 60 years of age. So a very good spread across the country, a good slice across the geopolitical zones and the states. So we can confidently tell you plus minus a margin of error of 3% that these are the views of Nigerians gathered in a very scientific manner, which can be replicated by anyone who wants to replicate.
So for the period in review, that's for the 365 days, you've talked about corruption. Let's talk a little bit more about how the poll was in terms of how did they rate education, and how did Nigerians rate the ease of doing business in 365 days of President Muhammadu Buhari's tenure?
Thank you very much. In education, on average, he was rated 23%. This is a poor score. So if you look at education and you talk about ease of doing business is tied to the economy. In the economy, he was rated 21%, which is also abysmal. The idea is that, and that ties into job creation, of which he was rated, the poorest of 14%. Now, no one is expecting government to create jobs, even though the government says they're trying to create some direct jobs, employ over 500,000 teachers and all that. The whole idea is to stimulate the economy in such a way that the private sector can create jobs. For example, manufacturing sector is struggling at the moment with this foreign exchange crisis, and we are having to see a situation where lots of manufacturing organizations are having to lay off their staff and lay off their workers. Some asking them to go home. When situation improves, they'll ask them to come back. So that's the whole idea. What policies are going to stimulate the economy to get the economy up on its feet so that businesses can begin to invest locally, and it can begin to also attract foreign direct investment. The beauty of it, though, is that, statistics are numbers. As they say, statistics are like mini skirts. They show you very interesting ideas, but you need to dig deep. You need to dig a little further. So it's for the president, his aides, the ministers, to call for some more research, some more in-depth studies, as you will, to dig in further to understand what Nigerians are really thinking about.
So you're talking about statistics and data, and I know for a certainty that those never lie. Data never lie. So did you ask Nigerians on the direction they believe the country was moving?
Yes, I mean, data speaks. That's what we say. For those of us in the business of opinion polling, we say data speaks, because all you need to do is to deploy your scientific methodology and allow it to run, and the data comes out clearly. And something interesting happened. So in April, the president was rated 42%, and in May, the president was rated 48%. So I tried to understand what's happening. I called for the raw data and tried to study the data a little bit further. What I realized was that because of the removal of the fuel subsidy, some Nigerians are saying we find it interesting, because in any case, these Nigerians were people who were buying petrol over 200 naira in the first place. So now subsidy has been removed. It's selling at 145 officially, and it makes the product available. Don't forget, these were people who were buying at 200 and were finding it difficult to get it at 200. But so you can see that play out in the data, and that's the beauty of public opinion polling. However, in terms of the direction of the country, looking back to 1 year, and we conducted this particular poll on this particular question in May, 44% of Nigerians currently think that looking back to a year, the country is heading on the right direction. However, conversely, 37% think the country is heading on the right direction, while 19% are indifferent. They neither believe the country is headed in the right or the wrong direction.
But then, taking a look at that particular data, what do you think are the issues that were highlighted, that have been highlighted, that should be the focus of this administration going forward?
Thanks for that. Very good question. I think the focus for this administration is very clear. We gave Nigerians the opportunity to recommend what should the president be doing moving forward in the next 3 remaining years of his tenure. Unemployment came tops. Whatever the president needs to do to stimulate this economy, to get private sector involvement, to get private sector creating more jobs, unemployment came tops, 21%. Electricity came second with 17%. But then you also understand that with electricity, small businesses, MSMEs can get to do their business. Artisanal workers, artisans can also get to do their business. So electricity, 17%. And the economy, the handling of the economy, it was rated at 16%. The first time in a long time, the economy slid, the GDP slid to 0.36%. This is not good story. You understand? And this is what really feeds into the poor approval rating on the economy, which is 21%. So this is data speaking here. There needs to be, however, more digging deep on the side of the president and his aides and the minister to flesh out what Nigerians are really looking for. But clear highlights here: unemployment, electricity, the economy.
Well, didn't you find that strange that the economy came last? Well, in the top 3, they just listed 16%. They want economic policies, a good handling of the economy at 16%, electricity at 17%, but creating jobs at 21%. That's like putting the cart before the horse. So you need to have very good, strong economic policies, if you ask me. You need to have electricity to drive and help businesses to grow, which will in turn create jobs.
You're absolutely right, but you are going this the intellectual way. We are pollsters. We speak to the ordinary man on the street. The ordinary man on the street, what he understands is that he wants to see jobs created.
Okay.
Yes, at our level, we can tie that to the economy, we can tie that to electricity, but the average Nigerian, and these are aggregated data from Nigerians, the average Nigerian wants to know that jobs are being created, but then, of course, the economy that should stimulate the jobs should be what it's at the background. Then electricity, if he has light, he can create his own job, he can set up a small business, he can have his small business running, and the economy, which sort of ties into all this. But then we shouldn't forget other areas. Agriculture was mentioned, 11%. The cost of goods and services, products in the market now are beyond which rice, garri, tomato, call it. So 11% think food and agriculture should be given attention, 9%, the education, 7% security. So a very interesting bit of data there. You see how security over time has sort of come down that ladder. In the past, you see security within the first 3, but this is the beauty. The perception is that some efforts have been put into security, especially with tackling Boko Haram, and perhaps that's why it's not featuring at the top 3.
Okay.
In any case, the top 3 is clear: employment, security, electricity
and the economy. Dr. Bell, Ihua, thank you so much for shedding more light on those numbers. Well, it's officially the last trading day of the month. Coming up, a review of some of the markets with Ayodeji Olabisi, investment analyst with Mary Stearns Limited.